Welcome to Lesson 11 of the Role of Priests in the Kingdom of Divine Will. This is Part 2, the Role of Priests, Subsection 1, the Call of Priests in the Holy Divine Will, Portion 6. Volume 25, January 13th, 1929. The Prophets. How the Kingdom of Redemption and that of the Fiat hold hands. Necessity that what regards the kingdom of the divine will be known. I was continuing to make my round in the acts of the divine fiat, and as I reached the point in which I would accompany the prophets when the divine volition manifested itself to them, the how and the when of the coming of the future Redeemer, and the prophets longed for him with tears, prayers, and penances, making everything they did my own, because all this were the fruits of the eternal divine fiat. I offered it in order to impetrate its kingdom upon earth. But while I was doing this, my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, when a good is universal, and must and can bring good to all, it is necessary that entire peoples, and if not everyone, a great part, know the good that they must receive, and with prayers, sighs, desires, and works, they impetrate a good so great, in such a way that, first, the good they want is conceived in their minds, sighs, desires, works, and even in their hearts, and then is the good that they longed for given to them in reality. When a good that must be received is universal, it takes the strength of a people to impetrate it. On the other hand, when it is individual or local, one can be enough to obtain the intent. Therefore, before coming upon earth and being conceived in the womb of the sovereign Queen of Heaven, I can say that I was conceived in the minds of the prophets, and I confirmed and gave value to this sort of conception in them through my manifestations of the when and the how I was to come upon earth in order to redeem mankind. And the prophets, faithful executors of my manifestations, acted as trumpeters, manifesting to the peoples with their words that which I had manifested about my coming upon earth. And conceiving me in their words, they made the news that the word wanted to come upon earth fly from mouth to mouth. And by this, not only was I conceived in the word of the prophets, but I remained conceived also in the word of the people, in such a way that all talked about it, and prayed, and longed for the future Redeemer. And when the news of my coming upon earth was diffused among the peoples, and almost an entire people, with the prophets at the head of it, prayed and longed for with tears and penances, only then, being as though conceived in their wills, I let the Queen come to life, in whom I was to conceive in reality, so as to make my entrance into a people who had been longing for me and desiring me for 40 centuries. What a crime would the prophets not have committed had they concealed, hidden within themselves, my manifestations about my coming. They would have prevented my conception in the minds, in the prayers, words, and works of the people, a necessary condition for God's being able to concede a universal good. that was my coming upon earth. Now, my daughter, the kingdom of redemption and the kingdom of my divine fiat hold hands, and since it is also a universal good, such that, if they want it so, all can enter into it, it is necessary that many know the news about it, and that it be conceived in the minds, in the words, in the works and hearts of many, so that through prayers, desires, and a holier life, they may dispose themselves to receive the kingdom of my divine will into their midst. If the news is not divulged, my manifestations shall not act as trumpeters, nor shall the knowledges about my divine fiat fly from mouth to mouth, forming the conception of it in the minds, prayers, sighs, and desires of creatures. My divine volition shall not make its triumphant entrance of coming to reign upon earth. How necessary it is that the knowledges about my fiat be known. Not only this, but that it be made known that my divine will already wants to come to reign on earth, as it does in heaven, into the midst of creatures. And it is to the priests, as to new prophets, through the word, as well as through writing and through works, that the task is given of acting as trumpeters, in order to make known what regards my divine fiat. Nor would their crime be lesser than that of the prophets, had these hidden my redemption, if they do not occupy themselves, as much as they can, with what regards my divine will. They themselves would be the cause of a good so great, being neither known nor received by creatures. And to suffocate the kingdom of my divine will, to keep suspended a good so great, such that there is no other similar to it, is this perhaps not a crime? Therefore I recommend to you, on your part, do not omit anything, and pray for those who must occupy themselves with making known a good so great. Then he added with a more tender and afflicted tone, My daughter, this was the purpose for which I permitted the necessity of the coming of the priest, that you might deposit in them, as a sacred deposit, all the truths that I have spoken to you about my divine fiat, and that they be attentive and the faithful executors of what I want. That is, that they make the kingdom of my divine will known. Be certain that I would not have permitted their coming, if not for the purpose of fulfilling my great designs over the destiny of the human family. And just as in the kingdom of redemption I left my queen mamma in the midst of the apostles, so that together with her, helped and guided by her, they might give start to the kingdom of redemption, because the sovereign queen of heaven knew more than all of the apostles. She was the most interested. It can be said that she kept it formed within her maternal heart. Therefore she could very well instruct the apostles in the doubts, in the way, in the circumstances. She was the true sun in their midst, and one word of hers was enough for my apostles to feel strong, illuminated, and fortified. In the same way, for the kingdom of my divine fiat, having placed in you the deposit of it, I keep you in the exile still, so that the priests might draw from you, as from a new mother, what can serve as light, as guidance, as help, to give start to making known the kingdom of my divine will. and as I see their little interest, if you knew how much I suffer. Therefore, pray, pray. Volume 25, March 22nd, 1929. So it shall be with the kingdom of my divine will. I called you as a second mother of mine, and one, just as I did with her in the kingdom of redemption, I manifested to you the many secrets of my divine fiat, the great good of it, and how it wants to come to reign upon earth. I can say that I have done everything, and if I called my priest, so that you might open yourself in order to make it known, my intent was so that he would have interest in making known a good so great. And if this interest were not there on the part of those who should occupy themselves with it, they would put the kingdom of my will at risk of dying upon its rising, becoming themselves responsible for all the good that a kingdom so holy can bring. Or they would deserve that, putting them aside, I call others as proclaimers and propagators of the knowledges of my divine fiat, until I find some who have interest and take to heart making known its knowledges more than if it were their own lives. The kingdom of my will can have neither its beginning nor its life upon earth. Volume 26, July 14th, 1929. Now, after I became sure about you, and I secured my work, my acting changed. I made you break the silence, and the ardor of my instructions and of my speaking was such and so great that I can call you the cathedra of my divine will, the secretary of its most intimate secrets, such that, as you were unable to contain them all within yourself, I commanded you to manifest them to my priest. And this acting of mine was necessary. Otherwise, how would my divine will have become known? Volume 27, January 30th, 1930. My daughter, there is much analogy between the way in which redemption unfolded and the way in which the kingdom of my divine will shall unfold. See, in my redemption I chose a virgin. In appearance she had no importance according to the world, either of riches or of height of dignity or positions which would indicate her. The very city of Nazareth was not important. A tiny little house was her whole abode. But even though I chose her from Nazareth, I wanted for it to belong to the capital city, Jerusalem, in which there was the body of the pontiffs and priests, who then represented me and announced my laws. For the kingdom of my divine will, I have chosen another virgin, who in appearance has no importance, either of great riches or of height of dignity. The very city of Corato is not an important city, but it belongs to Rome, in which resides my representative on earth, the Roman pontiff, from whom come my divine laws. And just as he makes it his duty to make my redemption known to the peoples, so shall he make it his duty to make known the kingdom of my divine will. It can be said that one and the other shall proceed in the same way and manner as the kingdom of my supreme fiat must unfold. Volume 29, February 17th, 1931. I deprived you of motion. I petrified you. I can say that I made you feel mortal pains. And you would let me do it. And this was nothing. The strongest tie was that you could not go out of that state of pains in which your sacrificer, Jesus, had put you. If my priest would not come to call you to obedience. This is what constituted you true victim. No sick person, not even the very prisoners, are denied motion and seeking help in extreme needs. Volume 30, May 30th, 1932. And then the sacraments are received in time, places, and circumstances. Baptism is given only once and never again. The sacrament of penance is given when one falls into sin. My very sacramental life is given only once a day. And in this gap of time, the poor creature does not feel upon herself the strength, the help of the baptismal waters that regenerate her continuously, nor the sacramental words of the priest that fortify her in a continuous way by saying to her, I absolve you from your sins. Volume 33, October 4th, 1935. As for the diversity of offices and actions, it is rather order and harmony of my infinite wisdom. Also in heaven there are diverse choirs of angels, diversity of saints. One is martyr, another is virgin, another is confessor. Upon earth my providence maintains many different offices. One is king, another is judge, another priest. Some form the people, some command, some others are dependent. If all did one single office, what would be of the earth? A complete disorder. Oh, if all understood that my divine will alone knows how to do great things, though they may be small and insignificant, oh, how they would all be happy, and each one would love the little place, the office in which God put them. But since they let themselves be lorded over by the human will, they would want to give of themselves, do some great action, which they cannot do. And so they are always discontent of the condition or the place in which my divine providence put them for their good. Here ends Lesson 11 of the Role of Priests in the Kingdom of Divine Will, Part 2, Priests, Subsection 1, Call of the Priests in the Holy Divine Will, Portion 6, final portion of this subsection. Fiat.